There you go. So welcome. We will do an official welcome in just a few minutes for those of you who are just coming on. I see Ana Alvarado. Ana, vamos a empezar en unos minutos, ¿ok? Ahorita estamos dando una bienvenida informal, pero pronto vamos a empezar con el programa. Just letting a few more people come on, and then we'll start in a few more minutes. And as most of you know, if you've been on a webinar, unlike a Zoom meeting, you're not seen yet. You're not seen at this point. Your faces aren't here. So we can focus on the panelists and if they have any slides. But what will happen is when we get to the end of the 3 panel presentations, that'll be about 15 minutes each, then we're going to have about half an hour for comments and questions. At that point, we'll be inviting people in. We'll be shifting you from attendee, and we'll give you a choice, if you want to accept it, to be a panelist. And that essentially lets you onto this screen so you can be seen and heard if you'd like to do that. Some people like to do that, some don't, but we'll probably get a bunch of you in, and then we can do the questions and comments. Okay, so that's the part that's coming up in just, we'll start in a few more minutes. We'll let a few more people get on. Jesse Daniels. Jesse, I'm glad you're here. I know you can't answer me yet, but I'm really glad you took time. Jesse covered our work for Healing Illinois when we were doing some of the racial unity dialogues. And I'm really glad you're back, Jesse. I see Claudia, who's been a worker for many years in Chicago, now has been a volunteer with us. I think I see the phone number perhaps of Reverend Campbell, but I'm not sure. Ana Alvarado helped lead a big worker movement, our first big campaign at Three Brothers Industrial Laundry at 19th and Washington. And after 18 months, she and some other women won many thousands of dollars in back pay. That was a great campaign, Anna, and now she's struggling with her kids to stay in her home. Bob Palmer, really glad you could make it, Bob. Housing Action Illinois. Edwin, awesome. From Edwin, I think you're with Latino Policy Forum, if I'm correct, and I'm really glad you and I were just on another teach-in the other day or something like that, some meeting. And I see others of you that I kind of know and kind of don't. Don't be offended if I can't remember everything about you from your name, but thank you very much for coming on. Adriana, glad you could make it. Okay, we'll give it just another minute or two, probably about 1 more minute. Then we're going to have Somos Sur, our interpreters, Eva and Cristal with Somos Sur, right? We are the South interpreting, and they're going to walk us through how the interpretation function works. My name is Leone. I'm the Executive Director of Working Family Solidarity, and I'll do a more formal welcome in just a minute. Madeline, Josefina, Jesse, Henrietta, Palmer, Adriana. Okay, super. Okay, we're gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till 6:05. I think it's gonna change over in just a minute. And thanks very much for making time. I know you got a lot to do, especially if you're a low-wage worker. I know Anna. I'm wondering if you made it home in time for this, Anna, because you drive a long way back from your work. But I'm glad if you made it home or to another computer. Okay, it's 6:05. So glad you could join us. We're not going to do a big official welcome yet, but if you were looking for rental assistance and resisting evictions, you came to the right webinar. My name is Leone Jose Bicchieri, Executive Director of Working Family Solidarity. We organize and are hosting, and then we have a bunch of great panelists and a bunch of great activists, as long as activists who are residents and tenants who are on this call. So it's really cool. I'm going to do a little bit of a more formal welcome very briefly in a moment, and then we're going to get to the panelists after my colleague Sharon says a couple words. Right now, we're going to have Somos Sur, We Are the South, the interpretation team, Eva Cardenas and Cristal Zaragoza. They are going to make sure everyone understands how to use the interpretation function. Here's a note, what we've learned. If it is possible, especially if you're using a phone, si están usando un teléfono, es posible que no vayan a poder usar la función de traducción como se debe. So sometimes it may not work if you have an older Zoom version on a phone, but for most of you, the interpretation function should work. So we're going to go ahead now and hear from Eva and from Cristal.
Leone, Do I have, sorry, I probably should have asked this earlier. Can I share my screen?
Yes, I did make all the panelists screen sharers.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. Si ven, todos pueden ver esto, hopefully. Okay, so lo voy a hacer en inglés primero. I'm going to do it in English and then I'll do it in Spanish y luego lo digo en español. But to have access to interpretation, if you're doing it via computer, look at the picture on your right. At the bottom left corner of your screen, you should have a little globe that says interpretation. Click on the globe and it'll give you the language options. In this case, we have English and Spanish. Choose the language you feel most comfortable with. If it's English, choose English. If you are bilingual, you can choose to have it off so you can hear both languages when they're spoken. And then if you're doing it via smartphone, at the bottom right corner of your phone, you will have 3 dots that says more. Click on those 3 dots, go down to language interpretation and choose a language you're most comfortable with, and then choose done. And then you will have access to the language interpretation. Para tener acceso a la interpretación, perdón, en la esquina de la derecha de abajo de su pantalla, en una computadora o laptop, van a ver el globito que dice interpretación. Por favor, opriman el globito y luego les va a dar las opciones del idioma que necesitan que escuchar. Si son bilingüe, por favor, dejen su interpretación apagada para que pueda escuchar ambos idiomas. Escojan el idioma que se sientan más cómodos. Si es español, escojan español y luego van a tener acceso a la interpretación. Si están en Zoom por su teléfono, por favor opriman los 3 puntitos en la pantalla que está abajo en la derecha que dice más. Ahí les va a dar diferentes opciones. Escojan interpretación de idiomas y luego escojan el idioma que les gustaría y luego asegúrense de finalizar su opción para que puedan tener acceso a la interpretación. Ahora durante el evento, por favor, una persona a la vez. Intérpretes nomás pueden interpretar a una persona y no tenemos la capacidad de escuchar ambas voces al mismo tiempo y no queremos decidir quién tiene más privilegios sobre la otra persona para dar su opinión. So during the event, one diva, one mic, we ask for one person at a time. Interpreters can only interpret for one person at a time, and we don't want to be put in the position where we have to choose or decide which voice has more privilege over the other. Por favor, hablen en voz alta y claramente. Idealmente usen audífonos con un micrófono para que los intérpretes puedan escucharles y podemos hablar sobre su voz. Speak up, sorry, speak loud and clear. Ideally use headphones with the microphone. Interpreters need to be able to hear the speaker over the sound of our own voice when doing simultaneous interpretation. Facilitadores, presentadores, entrenadores o cualquier participante de este webinario, por favor, hablen a un paso moderado. Tomen, inhalen y exhalen entre oraciones. Tomen pausas después de que cambien de la persona que esté hablando o haga preguntas. Hablando despacio o a un tono moderado, apoya a todas las personas, no nomás a los intérpretes. So please slow down to facilitators, presenters, trainers, and participants. Anyone speaking during the event, please speak at a moderate pace. Take a breath after each sentence. Take a pause after switching speakers or asking questions. Slowing down supports everyone, not just interpreters. Come on. Sorry, it wasn't changing slides. It's okay. We will do it this way. Oh, I guess that's all that is on this slideshow. Okay. If you all have any questions or have a hard time accessing interpretation, please put it down in the chat. Si tienen problemas o no pueden escuchar o tienen cualquier problema con la interpretación, por favor pónganlo en el chat para poder apoyarles. Gracias. Thank you, Leone.
Thank you very much. So now I will just take about 10 or 15 seconds here to make sure that both people are added. Let's see, Eva. Okay. Did that go through okay? Okay, we're okay? Okay, perfect. Okay, good. So now, thank you very much. Make sure my volume's okay. Okay. So thank you very much. Now in a little bit more formal way, thank you. A couple more people have joined us. My name is Leone Jose Biquieri. I'm the Executive Director of Working Family Solidarity. And our mission is to unite low-wage workers and their families, especially African American and Latinx, to struggle together for equitable development. And we consider ourselves a labor organization that organizes at the workplace, but also beyond the workplace, and especially in housing. So the same workers that we work with to make sure that they get decent wages, or at least fight for decent wages and more jobs, especially in our communities. We also support them to make sure they understand their housing rights so that the advances we make at the workplace in wages and compensation don't go down the drain when our rent is raised $500 a month and all the other things that happen with gentrification. So I'm going to leave it pretty short about us. Suffice to say that we're concerned about the eviction moratorium ending nationally. It'll end in Illinois in a couple days. Our panelists will talk more about that. But we have a really excellent panel with several great people, and I'll introduce them in a minute. The teach-ins that we do, we hope that they can help people come together and keep fighting and form more and more alliances across the city, both between residents and between organizations. Thank you very much for being with us. And before we start our panel, we're going to have a few words from my colleague, our community organizer, Sharon Norwood.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? So tonight we are going to be doing this teach-in on this rental evictions moratorium, and we know that it's ending. We have 3 phenomenal panelists. So I want you guys to pay attention, get your pen and pads out, take notes, listen, get this information. It's needed so it can help you get through this moratorium and get through these evictions. So I turn it back over to Leone.
And since we have limited time tonight, Sharon's not going into a lot of experience. She has both organizing and personally going through a lot of difficult housing situations. So this is someone who speaks from a lot of experience about how important this is. We're going to have 3 terrific panelists, and I'm going to introduce each one just before they start. We're going to start with you, Michael, in a second, just so you know. And we're going to go ahead and then go with Foluke and then go with Shamira, and I'll give your full names. Actually, excuse me, I am out of order on my own agenda. We are going to start with Foluke. Sorry, Foluke. Michael, you'll have to wait 15 minutes. So we actually have an agenda, which I decided to quickly throw in the trash, I guess, but we're going to go with Foluke first. So I'm very honored to present these 3 people who are working together. And a lot of you, I've noticed, we have residents, tenants, members of our organization, people who know us in the community. We also have several people from different organizations, housing and other. So I'm really glad there's a lot of these teach-ins going on right now. And like I told people who couldn't make it tonight, if you can't make it to ours, find another one, please, quickly. It's not about our organization. It's about keeping people in their homes and that you should not be punished for not being rich during a pandemic. So with that in mind, talking mainly about rental assistance, and not a lot of time, but again, we will be following up with people. I think our presenters are going to be putting things in the chat. We can follow up afterwards and send all of you, we have your emails, we can send you any information they leave with me. So our first presenter is going to be Foluke Akanni of Housing Action Illinois, and she's going to be focusing on rental assistance. So Foluke, thanks a lot for making it.
Thank you, Leon, for having me. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. I'm going to share my slides and kind of go through what is available for rental assistance right now for folks in the Cook County area in Chicago. Let me see. So it's taking me a second to share screen.
That's okay. I just double checked and kind of like with the interpreters, you should be able to, I think you're set up to get to screen share.
Yeah, it's saying check your system preference.
You want us to go
Yeah, I mean,
with someone else while you take a minute?
yeah, you can go with someone else when I take a minute. I'm gonna see why it's not sharing. Okay,
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so
Bye-bye.
maybe it was, yeah, it was kind of interesting. I accidentally went with Michael. Maybe that was fate. Michael, if it's okay, you were going to go second. You've now jumped, leapfrogged into first place. So Michael Chavarria is with Housing Choice Partners, also with Illinois Coalition for Fair Housing. And he's going to talk about affirmative defense and some other related issues. And Michael, thanks very much for making time.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. So we're going to hear, I think, this evening a lot about different ways to combat evictions. We know that evictions are coming because, as Leone said, the moratoriums have ended or are ending. Sorry, I'm sorry about the noise. So one way that everyone can fight against evictions, even if you yourself are not facing it, but that you can join your neighbor, your friend, your colleague, your family member in preventing evictions, is by joining the fight to pass House Bill 2775. So I'm a part of a coalition called the Illinois Coalition for Fair Housing, which is working to make source of income discrimination illegal across the state of Illinois. For anyone who's not familiar with what source of income discrimination is, basically, the simplest example is when someone is applying for a new housing unit or in some way trying to pay for their rental housing using a non-traditional wage. But in addition to that, what we've seen during COVID is a new sort of evolution of source of income discrimination, which is discrimination against workers. In particular, service industry workers. We've seen as the shutdowns and stay-at-home orders were put in place that those working in the service industry were treated very unfairly, as landlords were evaluating them and treating them as if they were unstable because of those shelter-in-place orders. Or we've seen healthcare workers being denied or treated unfairly in their housing situations because their landlord or neighbors fear that they were, because they were on the front line of COVID, treating those sick with COVID, they were feared that they would bring it home. And they were being evicted, harassed, told not to come back. Their applications were being denied, and so on. So what we want to do is we want to make this form of discrimination illegal so that all income, just like a dollar bill can pay any debt in the United States, we want to make sure that any income can pay any rent in the state of Illinois. So the thing that I think is most important to those that are here today to talk about how to combat evictions is just as Leone described earlier, it's the affirmative defense piece. So not only are we going to make it illegal to treat people unfairly because of their source of income, we're going to make it much more difficult to displace a family because of their source of income. I want to be careful with the way I say it because I want to be very accurate and realistic with what this bill will do. It will create an affirmative defense. In 2020, the state of Illinois launched a massive emergency rental assistance program to assist families who were hard hit by COVID, who are losing income due to stay-at-home orders, because of shutdowns of work, whatever, because of illness. they were given this opportunity to apply for rental assistance. We thought this was a great thing. I actually helped work on this project where we were getting the word out to the most impacted communities. We focused on the south and west sides of the city of Chicago, where we knew there was higher infection rates and higher unemployment rates related to COVID. What we were hearing from our clients in the communities we serve was that their landlords were refusing to accept that emergency rental assistance. What we actually found out was that they were refusing it at a rate so much larger than we ever guessed. Of all the applications that were submitted in about a 2 to 3 month period, of those completed by the tenant, 57,201, or 40% of all applications, were not completed by the landlord. That means in 2 to 3 months, there were 57,000 instances of source of income discrimination that directly impacted the state of Illinois' ability to stabilize its residents and ensure their housing. What the affirmative defense piece will do is it'll say that in situations like that, where a landlord is moving to evict a renter for non-payment of rent, but that renter did everything they could by applying for emergency rental assistance and that landlord refused it, then they would be able to raise this defense so that a judge can decide if it is reasonable for them to be evicted for non-payment of rent, even though the landlord refused their form of payment. This is incredibly important right now, and I think the reason why everyone here should take a few minutes out of their day to contact their senator and tell them to sign on to House Bill 2775 and to vote yes whenever it's called is because we know that there's going to be a lot more rental assistance coming out. The state of Illinois is dedicating $387 million of its American Rescue Plan funds to emergency rental assistance. If we allow 40% of $387 million to be just denied because the landlord doesn't like it, doesn't want to fill out a quick application, doesn't want to fill out a couple pieces of paperwork. Mind you, they have no problem asking you, the tenant, to fill out all the paperwork, but they don't want to be bothered with it. We cannot allow 40% of $387 million to be denied by landlords. Landlords that would rather evict than to partner with the renters that have kept them in business for so long. So please, I'm going to drop a bunch of links into the chat box in a moment. It'll take you to our website where you can learn more about the bill and the impact the number of Illinoisans that will benefit. This will have a huge benefit to housing choice voucher holders. That is a form of rental assistance. Right now, Congress is looking at passing a bill that'll bring 31,000 new vouchers, new opportunities to stabilize families. And we need to make sure that if that happens, those tens of thousands of families have these protections. We need to make sure that once these moratoriums end and eviction courts open back up at full capacity, that tenants have the ability to defend themselves when they did everything they could. I'm going to drop these links in there. Please take a look. I think the most important link will be the one that takes you to look up your Illinois state senator. Please take a few minutes to just type your address into the search box, find out who your state senator is, give them a call tomorrow, send them an email tonight, whatever you prefer, and tell them to vote yes on HB 2775. And even better, tell them to make sure it is called the next time they're in session. So I'll leave it at that and just drop these links in there. And I'm happy to answer any questions at all.
Michael's happy to answer your questions, but you don't get to ask any. But you will soon. So what we're going to do is we're just going to hold all the questions because sometimes it's going to overlap, right, with what the next person says. So everyone will get a chance. And as I mentioned, a couple people who came on after we got started, we will go with 2 more presentations, and then we'll have about 30 minutes of questions and comments. And during when that starts, we will be allowing, you'll see a little message if you're listening, if you're an attendee, to click on to accept to be a panelist. I'll be sending you those invitations. You don't have to. Some people don't like being on the screen with a bunch of people. That's fine. You can probably type something in the chat. I'll try to see if I can at least allow you to talk, even if you don't want to be seen. But if you accept the invitation, you'll come in as a panelist, be a little bit more of a meeting form. And for a while, we can take questions. So that'll be coming very soon. I will just say that some of you heard Michael saying, please join us in fighting for this. And you might be saying, well, what good does that do me? Because I could be getting eviction served on me in 4 or 5 days. But the idea here is, first of all, that could be the situation, and some of the other panelists and maybe even some other people that we can help you talk to later, including us, can help you fight before some of the things Michael talks about could be passed. But some of the things Michael talks about, because Working Family Solidarity, we're a part of that coalition. We're fighting now and we're trying to get it in as soon as possible. So it could be a long time, but it might not be. And so as the eviction process goes, some landlords may give you a month, then start to evict. So this is something, again, called the affirmative defense, right? Where ahead of time you're saying, in effect, I'm sort of a protected class here, and be careful if you move to evict me. I know my rights, and I believe that, House Bill 2775, maybe it's already passed the House or the Senate by then, maybe it's about to be law. Hey, I'm going to stick to that, and we can support you on it. So that's what Michael's talking about. So we're in the process, many, many people, of fighting for that across the state. Thanks a lot, Michael. Foluke, I thought I saw an interruption on the screen for a minute. So I think maybe you got everything ready. So our next panelist, Foluke Akanni, is with Housing Action Illinois. She's going to be talking to us about rental assistance. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. And sorry about that technical loop, but I'm going to start. It's talking about, thanks again, Leon, for having me here. Like Leon said, I am Foluke Akanni from the Housing Action, and I'm the housing policy organizer. And today I'll be talking about preventing evictions and also the emergency rental assistance programs that are still available in Chicago and Cook County. So just a little bit about who we are. Housing Action Illinois is a statewide coalition. We formed to protect and expand affordable housing in the state of Illinois, and we did that through policy advocacy, education and organizing, capacity building, and also through our American networks that help in working across different organizations in talking about poverty. One of the grants that we have is called Opportunity Starts at Home campaign. It is a campaign meant to involve folks from multi-sectors who are not usually, who naturally don't participate in affordable housing issues and policies. So we have done that. This is a grant through the National Low Income Housing Coalition. So folks who don't actually do affordable housing issues or policies, we help to educate and bring them and partner with them around affordable housing issues. And we've done that through the Refugee Action Network and other agencies in the state of Illinois. And this is supposed to help with racial equity and economic mobility. And that's, again, one of the things that we're partnered with Working Family Solidarity on. For more information, you can also check our that website for more information about that. So in the topic of applying for emergency rental assistance funding, there is available funding still available in the city of Chicago and also Cook County and other parts of Illinois. In the city of Chicago, the Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago, NHS, is still currently accepting applications through their neighborhood offices. And also the city of Chicago has delegated agencies that have the emergency rental assistance funds available until it runs out. There is a link I'll put in the chat box after my presentation that you can go to the City of Chicago's website to see those delegate agencies and apply to those agencies if you are looking for emergency rental assistance. Also, all Chicago is also accepting applications for emergency rental assistance through their online portal, and this is funded by IDHS. I kind of went very straight to the emergency rental assistance funding, but like I think Leon also mentioned that The moratorium is ending in for the state of Illinois October 3rd. It was extended in September and to October 3rd, which is this coming Sunday. So if you are in need for any of those available funds, again, in the city of Chicago, it's through the neighborhood services, neighborhood housing services, NHS. And then the city of Chicago also has some delegate agencies, and also all Chicago is also having funds for that as well. The city of Chicago will have another round of ERA this fall. Not sure the date, but whenever that is, we'll let folks know. But they're planning to have also another round of applications for ERA funds this fall. So if you live in Cook County or other parts of Illinois, you can apply right now for the ERA funds to IDHS. They're accepting applications. I'm going to put also that link for that also in the chat after this presentation. Folks can apply to IDHS. They also have faith-based providers around the state that can also accept applications through the IDHS online portal. Cook County is set to open the applications for suburban residents October 4th. So next week, Monday, Cook County has their ERA program opened, and either we have another round of ERA program funds available also this fall. Not quite sure what the day would be, but I'm thinking, yeah, sometime in the fall they'll have that open. These are links that I'll put also in the chat that just talks about the requirements and documentation needed for those programs and those funds. With the programs, they do cover 12 months of back rent and 3 months of future rent for all of these programs. So if you are again looking for emergency rental assistance, you can go through these agencies for right now. And then again, the IDA for IDA in Chicago are opening their rounds in the fall, and then Cook County has their applications open for October 4th. Again, for eviction prevention resources, we do have again the talking about IDA funds. This is their the Illinois Rental Assistance Org also connects you to service providers who can also help you with emergency rental assistance. And also I previously talked about the faith-based organizers and groups who can also help with the application process for IDHS. When it comes to resources around eviction prevention, there are legal services and mediation services available. Our friends from Lawyers Community Better Housing also has a reinvention.com website that you can go onto to also check and get some information about eviction if you're going through the eviction process. And I'm going to talk about the second in the next slide about the court-based eviction process as well. But that's some resources that it's out there. And then the evictionhelpillinois.org is also free legal aid services and resource for any questions that you may have when it comes to legal aid, when it comes to the eviction. So with the court-based rental assistance program for outside Cook County, so for the rest of the 101 counties in the state of Illinois, that program started September 15th. So if you are going through the eviction process right now, you should have, through the program that's supposed to be working is that you should have, if you have a summons issued for you as a resident and you're outside Cook County, you have that a page that talks about the emergency rental assistance program and how to apply for it. There's no requirements when it comes to citizens and immigration status when it comes to those court-based programs or any of the programs I'm talking about today. So if you are undocumented citizens, you can apply for all of these programs as well. But for the court-based program, folks are going through that web portal and also through the information given to you through your summons to apply for those court-based rental assistance program. Cook County also has a program that will be starting sometime early early October. I'm not sure what date, but that program also was starting for Cook County as well. So these are some more resources, again, around eviction and rental assistance. If you need any kind of legal resources or legal resources or any information, there is the COVIDHelpIllinois.org organization that helps with anybody also facing legal problems during the pandemic. And then also there are federal resources available as well. And I'll send the slides for folks who need the links as well. And then IDA will also be launching a mortgage assistance program in the fall. So for folks who are also struggling to pay their mortgage, there will be that assistance also available in the fall for homeowners as well. So my last slide is just going to talk about action. So I think Michael talked a little bit about action when it comes to the source of income campaign. This is a federal campaign called, they renamed it the Build Better, the Build. So I have to look at my notes for the acronym for this, but it's Build Back Better Act for this bill. This is a bill that's federally that's going to create more funding for affordable housing. It's $330 billion putting towards affordable housing, which it's been a long time since we had that funding for affordable housing. But it gives $90 billion for rental assistance towards the Housing Choice Voucher Program, $80 billion to preserve public housing, and then $37 billion for the Housing Trust Funding Program. So in the state of Illinois, this means that over 31,000 new housing vouchers will be provided through this program. And then also will help to address racial wealth gap by providing $10 billion for down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. So this is something that we are supporting as Housing Action Illinois, and we also would like this group to also support as well. I'll put the link for the action alert also on the chat for folks who need it. But it will send that, if you fill out the action alert, it will send that to your federal legislators, just saying that you want support for this bill, and for them to vote accordingly when it is brought up in Congress. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm going to turn it back to Leon.
Thanks a lot, Foluke. Really appreciate it. You're seeing a lot on rental assistance and other things. And again, I don't know, Foluke, if you now, as we go to Shamira, if you want to enter any of that information in the chat, maybe, I know it's hard to enter all of it. Maybe you want to do a few key web pages or whatever you'd like to do. And then again, I mentioned this earlier, but afterwards, I'm not sure we'll do it tonight, but we could do it by tomorrow. For sure, we can send everyone who's on this webinar, who's attending. We have everyone's email, and we can send everyone this information. We can pull it together from the chat. And if one or more of the panelists leave me any kind of slides or information or send them to me, I will go ahead and forward them out in an email and maybe put some information in the body of the email and also attach some other things. And please reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to any of these panelists and their organizations directly. And if you're not sure what to do, feel free to reach out to me. I may then, between myself and my colleague Sharon, we will find a way to get you the information you need. And you had a barking dog, Michael. I am now going to have 2 barking kids in a moment. Mira, pueden venir, pero espérate. Okay? Oh, wow. This is my little boy. He can bark. So espérate. No ladres ahorita, okay? So now we're gonna go ahead. Okay, okay, espérate un segundito, okay, espérate un segundito. So now we are going to start, we're gonna go on to, sorry, I'm getting a little confused here with these 2 little guys. Our third panelist is Shamira Nazem, and she's with the Chicago Bar Foundation and also with Cook County Legal Aid for Housing and Debt, which Foluke had actually just referred to. So Shamira, please take it away.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name's Shamira. I am with the Chicago Bar Foundation, and my Instructions for today were to talk a little bit about eviction court. So I'm going to do that, but I also want to talk a little bit about resources to help you navigate eviction court in the if you do find yourself in eviction court. Hopefully some of these other resources that have been covered will keep folks out of there, but the unfortunate reality is too many people will end up in court, and we want to make sure that we can do everything possible to mitigate the harm that happens there. But before that, let me walk through some of the steps that need to happen before someone goes to eviction court. And apologies, I tend to talk fast, so if the interpreters can just remind me to slow down periodically, I will do my best to help you out there. So first, before any case can be filed in eviction court here in Illinois, a landlord has to give a tenant an eviction notice. That's a written piece of paper that basically just says, this is what you did wrong. If you don't fix it, I'm going to file an eviction case against you. It usually says that in much more complicated language, but that's kind of the takeaway of it. And the notices may give a certain period of time before the case can be filed. The most common kind of notice that you've probably heard of is a 5-day notice. That's what a landlord gives when someone's behind on their rent, and it gives the renter 5 days to pay back all the past due rent, or the landlord can move forward with filing an eviction case. There are other types of notices as well that aren't as common. A 10-day notice when someone's violated some part of the lease other than rent, and then 30, 60, or 90-day notices if a landlord is choosing not to renew a lease. And that length of time can vary depending on where you live, what kind of lease you have, and who's filing the case. So just kind of overview, before anything can happen in court, you should hopefully get some kind of written warning that there's an issue and that it could end up in court if no action is taken. If you get a 5-day notice, you can pay in the 5 days and prevent the eviction. But realistically, we know that's often very challenging, especially right now with the pandemic and all of the economic consequences of that. It's just not a reality for many people. Even with the rental assistance programs that are opening, that still doesn't happen fast enough for most people to pay in the 5 days. So after that time period has passed, landlord can move forward and file a case now. You've heard a lot about the eviction moratoriums that have limited what kinds of cases could be filed, but those are all coming to an end. And right now, a landlord can move forward and file a case, and the only restrictions are on entering an eviction order, and those last few restrictions will be lifted in a matter of days. So after the notice has been served, the landlord can file a case. I'm going to focus on Cook County, although I know that some of you probably work with communities that are outside of Cook County. But here in Cook, we have 6 courthouses. There's 1 in downtown Chicago and 5 suburban courthouses. The case will be filed in whichever district the property is located in. The landlord does have to pay to file a case. So we always encourage folks to try to reach a resolution with their landlord before they filed a case. Sometimes there might be a way to convince a landlord to hold off on the expense and the headache and hassle of filing a case by considering rental assistance or mediation or other ways to resolve a case short of going to court. But if that's not successful, a landlord can go to court, pay their filing fees, and get a court date. When they file a case, they'll need to create an eviction complaint, which is a court document that outlines why they want to evict someone, where the property is, that they're the owner of the property, and some other basic information that they'll need to prove to the court to move forward with that case. They'll also need to attach with that eviction paper a copy of the lease, a copy of the eviction notice, and right now, they'll also need to attach a couple other pandemic notices that are required, establishing that it's not subject to the moratorium, and also letting people know about rental assistance and legal aid programs. So the eviction complaint will normally come with a large stack of papers with it. After a case has been filed, a landlord will need to make arrangements for the tenant to get served, to get notice of the court proceeding. Normally that's done by the sheriff. Sometimes a landlord may need to hire a special process server to deliver those papers, or in some situations, even post the court papers. But one way or another, the landlord has to provide some kind of notice to the tenant that there is a proceeding. So the tenant can have an opportunity to prepare a defense and to arrange to go to court and advocate on their behalf. The first court date is now called a case management court date in Cook County. And the good news there is that the first court date's no longer a trial date like it was for a long time in Cook County, where cases could really go to trial on the first time they were up in court. Now everything goes through a case management process, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And then there will be at least a second court date before any kind of judgment or resolution can happen in court. So there are always at least 2 court dates, and sometimes more, depending on what happens in court. Ultimately, a case can be resolved in a few different ways. An eviction order can be entered, or a case can, sorry, I'll try to slow down. An eviction order can be entered against a tenant. Sometimes a case is dismissed. That means the landlord chooses not to pursue the case. A case may be dismissed either because the landlord did something wrong and they're not allowed to pursue the case, or it may be dismissed because the landlord and the tenant were able to reach some kind of agreement and they're choosing not to pursue the case. And there may be some other options that happen in court as well, but the most common are either an eviction order or the case is dropped for one reason or another. If an eviction order is entered against the tenant will not be evicted that day. That's a really important thing to understand because it's a very scary process. But the eviction order can't be enforced by the landlord. The landlord will have to take that eviction order and give it to the Cook County Sheriff, and only the sheriff can go out and enforce it. So after an eviction order, a period of time will pass before someone comes out to change the locks. The sheriff's office will normally give advance notice before they do that, and try to, if someone needs extra help relocating, can try to connect them with social services. So that is kind of the step-by-step process of what happens. And I did want to walk through that because it can be a lengthy process. Well, it's very scary and it's very stressful. And if you get an eviction notice, it can be really something that makes people want to panic, but know that there are different steps to this process, and landlords have to go through all of the steps before they can evict someone. And it does take some time to go through all of these steps. So nothing will happen immediately, even if you do get an eviction notice or court papers. So now I want to talk a little bit about some of this process I'm describing is really, most of it applies statewide. What I'm going to talk about next is unique to Cook County though. But the general process with the notice, the filing, service, and then the court date and the sheriff is pretty consistent throughout the state. Here in Cook County, our court has worked to make some significant changes to the eviction court process over the last year and a half, understanding that the pandemic has created huge uncertainty for so many people, and wanting to do what it can to mitigate some of that harm, while also having to fulfill its role as a neutral system that can resolve disputes. So the county and the circuit court have worked together to launch a new legal aid program. It's called Cook County Legal Aid for Housing in Debt. And it's a partnership between the county and the court system and a network of 8 legal aid providers, some of which you may be familiar with, and my organization, the Bar Foundation. Our goal with this program has been to make sure that everyone who wants help, legal help, can get it in eviction court. Before this program, there were lots of wonderful organizations that are there to offer free legal aid, but normally the burden was on tenants to find them, to find the information, to call them, to go through an intake, and it meant too many people were falling through the cracks and weren't able to get these resources. What we wanted to do is change that so that every single person who goes through court will automatically get a chance to talk to a lawyer. They don't have to call someone and wait and go through an intake process. We just wanted to put the legal aid lawyers right there in eviction court. So now when folks go to their first court date in Cook County, there are case managers, there are legal aid lawyers, there are mediators, and there are rental assistance screeners starting next week that will be in the court call, ready to serve people right there on the spot, completely for free. This is a countywide program, so they're able to provide those services in all 6 courthouses in Cook County. The way they can do that is that everything is remote. So all of the eviction courts right now in Cook County are remote. Everything happens on Zoom. We know that there are people who aren't able to use Zoom easily. They don't have the technology or they don't have comfort using it. Our court system has established Zoom kiosks in each courthouse. So if someone has to go to eviction court and they're not comfortable using Zoom at home, or they don't have a computer or internet, they can travel to the courthouse. They can use a free computer in the courthouse to access Zoom court. And the court has staff members who are there to help people log on to Zoom and make sure that the equipment is working. So I did want to mention that so folks understand that they do not have to physically go to court, even if they get court papers. They can just appear using Zoom, just like we're on right now, from home. That's something that the court is planning to keep, even when COVID is over, hopefully someday. They're planning to keep those remote hearings for eviction court because it allows our program and our legal aid partners to serve all 6 courthouses in a way that they can't do if they have to be in all 6 locations at once. So just if someone goes to court now, again, what will happen is they'll meet with the judge will match them with a case manager, and the case manager will help get them paired up with a legal aid lawyer or a mediator. And those folks are able to provide a number of services. They can maybe help settle a case with the landlord. They're maybe able to help someone find a defense and articulate it, or at the very least, they're able to help them understand what's going to happen and where they can go to get resources if they're going to ultimately be displaced from their home. So there are a lot of different services that someone can get when they go to court now through all of these partner organizations. The last thing I want to mention, which is new, is starting on October 12th, we're also going to have a rental assistance program based in the court. I think Foluke mentioned a little bit about the statewide court rental program. This is really kind of a sister program to that one. It's launching October 12th, and we're going to have a team of about 5 rental assistance screeners who are going to be on the Zoom calls, the eviction court Zoom calls, and are able to meet with people right there to help determine if they're eligible for rental assistance and to help them get started on their applications. The criteria will be pretty similar to the statewide one, but there are a few differences. Tenants can apply even if their landlord will not participate. We're going to create a system for a tenant-led application in that situation, and hopefully that will be able to help some folks, even if their landlords are not willing participants, which unfortunately is all too common, as you heard earlier from Michael. And then another key part of this program is that we're going to be able to give judges updates about the rental assistance application status. We've heard too many times that the process takes too long, judges get impatient, the landlords are impatient, and they don't want to wait. So with our court-based program, we're hopefully going to be able to make those decisions on a faster basis and to give judges access to the rental assistance information as it's updated so that they'll have more insight into that process. And hopefully it will be able to move a little faster and help avoid some of these cases from going to trial and ending up in eviction judgments. So we're really happy that that program's launching. We think that it's going to be a good kind of tool to have along with all of the other services that are available through this program. I will put the website and the phone number for the Cook County Legal Aid Program in the chat. I've mostly talked about how you can access it in court, but there's also a hotline. So if someone's got questions before court, or if there isn't even a case yet, they can still call out to the hotline just to understand what their rights are, what their options are, how they can apply for rental assistance, and kind of any of those other questions. There's a hotline that's open Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30, and it's staffed by free legal aid lawyers who are able to kind of help people at any stage in this process and advise them about what they can do to best protect themselves. So with that, I think I'll wrap up there, and I'm happy to answer questions when we get to that section. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Samira. So as you're noticing, a certain amount of information has already gone into the chat and to the chat box. And I just heard Samira say she was going to add some more. So again, on the one hand, please feel free to try to save that information. As Sharon said early on, write it down, save it if you're at a computer. But in addition, we will commit Working Family Solidarity. We have all your emails, so we will make sure that tomorrow we also send out, we'll gather the different information from the chat and put it into a Word document, and we'll get it out to you as well. And again, please feel free to stay in touch with us. I'm the main email that you've got sort of to stay in touch with this particular, when you get our mailings. And so if you reach out to me and Working Family Solidarity, so myself or my colleague Sharon, if we're a good organization to follow up with you, we'll do that. But the important thing now is everyone gets supported. So if it's better that we try to put you in touch with Michael or Foluke or Samira, or actually there's a number of terrific activists doing amazing work that are on this call right now. One from Washington, D.C., who I noticed joined in, and I'm going to see if he wants to say anything in a few minutes here in a little bit. But the idea is we all want to help each other and make sure that people talk to the right person to understand their situation. Some of this is legal. Some of this is what I, as an organizer, call extra legal. A lot of us have begun putting pressure on Sheriff Tom Dart, telling them, look, you know, slavery was once legal, right? And so on and so forth, right? Certain things were once legal. How can you take a human being out of their home, men, women, and children, and put them on the street in a pandemic, right? How can you do that? It's like doing it during World War II in Poland. You can't do that, right? And so there's a lot of organizations, and I don't want to speak too strongly and then we can't back it up, but there's a lot of organizations starting to talk about how we come together, hopefully to resist in the legal ways that we can, but also looking at ways to put pressure on leaders, people who call themselves leaders, but are in elected positions. Some are leaders, some are not, but they're elected officials. Some of us are putting pressure on landlord association of realtors to keep people in their homes. Hopefully, sort of the carrot works, but also, you know, we may need to look at resisting in other ways, nonviolent resistance, not trying to hurt anyone, but making sure that the sheriff knows it may not be as simple as going knocking on a door and have people quickly throw all their stuff out and run outside to greet you, but people may not cooperate as much as you'd like. So they're going to have to evict thousands and thousands of people. I don't know how many deputies they have or how fast they can deputize people. So together, we're going to stay in touch and look at every single possibility so that we can fight as hard as we can, okay? So with that, I wanted to see if my colleague Sharon Norwood had any particular comment or question that she might want to work in now as we begin this next part of question and comments. And as she begins talking, I'm going to go ahead to the participants, and I have this cool little button where I can allow you to talk or do other things. I think you can already have access to the chat because I think someone already wrote in there something. I think Jennifer might have already, or Jessica, Josefina Navar already wrote something in there. Thank you. And so I think that might have been kind of answered when Samira was talking, but we will be, I'm going to be clicking to let you come in as a panelist. I think you may have to click OK, but please look for that. And if you'd like to, then you'll just be joining us on screen, and then we'll go in order. You can maybe put your name in the chat and I'll call on you and we can talk a little bit more. Okay, so Sharon's going to have a comment and or question, and I'm going to start letting the rest of you in if you'd like to as panelists. And thanks again for making it.
Thanks again, Leonie, and thank you to our phenomenal panelists again. I do have a few questions. So Samir, my question to you is, with all of those good things going on, when the tenant, because you got to understand these tenants are going to be afraid of going into landlord tenant court. And for the most part, people don't just stop paying rent. Something had to happen. So just say if they did finally get their rental assistance money and they have it to pay the landlord, do the tenant have the right to cure when they get in front of the judge? That is something that we didn't touch on. So I think that that's something that needs to be explained to them, that they have up into we get into in front of the judge, because now the judge has to ask the tenant. Am I correct? They have to ask the tenant.
Yep, that's exactly right. It's actually relatively new protection, thanks to the hard work of a lot of wonderful advocates, including some folks on this call, that now tenants in City of Chicago and Cook County have a right to cure, one-time right to cure. So they can go into court at any point and say, I've got all the money. And as long as an eviction judgment hasn't been entered against them, the landlord has to take that money. Now, it needs to be not just the back rent, it also needs to be those court costs. So that's the filing fee the landlord paid to file the case and whatever he paid to the sheriff. So it's usually rent plus a little bit. But that's one of the reasons that we're really hopeful this rental assistance is going to make a difference, at least locally. Because even if a landlord doesn't want to cooperate, if it will make them whole, they have no choice but to take it.
Thank you. And Foluke, for you had explained that there is still the ERA out there, the emergency rental assistance money available. And you said that it's 12 months back rent and 3 months for the future rent. So could you explain to our people here how that will work? How would that look? So how would they know that this has been taken care of, or how much have been paid towards their rent? Because what I found is some people, even though they were behind with rent, they would still pay the landlord some money. So is Ida and Cook County telling the tenants, hey, we've given the landlord all of the back rent and here's 3 months, and do the tenants understand that 3 months of future rent is supposed to go into their hand?
That's a good question, Sharon. So I think it depends on the different types of programs. So you have IDHS, you have Cook County, you have the city, and then you also have IDA. And they have different programs and different satellite agencies administering the program. But from my understanding, through the IDA program, they don't have an IDHS program. They don't have through that system, a tenant would get emails saying they've been approved, but they won't say the amount. I think Cook County does the amount. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
I believe
Cook County does. I'm sorry, cut you off.
Yeah, but I think the other programs do not state the amount. I'm not sure about the city of Chicago, but I know with IDA and IDHS, that's something that we're recommending they do. So I guess stay tuned. Hopefully, maybe in the next round they have that fixed. But right now, as a tenant, you will get some kind of email from their system saying you've been approved for those funds.
Thank you, Foluke. And Michael, last but not least, for you, my question is, you said $387 million is coming, right? And so if $387 million is coming to continue to assist people with rental assistance, when should we be looking for that? Because, people are like this right now.
Yeah, so all we are hearing, so that figure was specifically for the state of Illinois' program. So that's Illinois Housing Development Authority. We've probably heard the acronym IDA a lot. That's what I'm talking about there. They keep saying fall. They haven't defined fall. So it's kind of like a 3-month window that just started. So we haven't got word about it yet. So it's going to be a bit. But everyone should definitely be mindful. The one good thing about the state's program is it is extremely well marketed. So there really shouldn't be much reason for anyone not to hear about it. They tend to do like, I forget what the term is, but they tend to, have it included in like utility bills and stuff like that so that everyone can find out about it, radio ads and so on. Also just following, I imagine, signing up for a newsletter for any organization that presented today, we'll get you that information as soon as we find out about it.
Okay, awesome. And so for everybody here with these phenomenal panelists, giving us all this good information, just make sure if you have any questions, any follow-up, you could ask questions now, but anything later, make sure you shoot Leonie or I an email and we'll try to get those answered for you. My email is sharonk@workingfamilysolidarity.org. Or you could call me 708-634-9491. And I'm sure everybody has Leonie's information as well. But just to keep in tune, because I want to keep everybody abreast of what's going on with this rental money assistance that's out here and your rights. You know, housing is a human right and you deserve that. And no one should be able to take that away from you. So there's help out here. It's just a phone call or email away. You got our information. And with that, I'll turn it over to Leonie. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sharon. Like I said, Sharon knows from organizing and personal experience about a lot of the way these nasty things work to really dehumanize all of us, including the people doing it. I wanted to see if a really great person that I was lucky enough to meet some months ago, James Benton in Washington, D.C. wants to comment or ask a question to kind of learn from some of the efforts they're doing in the D.C. area. They have a slightly different situation, which is kind of interesting. And he and I met a while ago, but before I wanted to make sure, I don't think Josefina, that you came onto the screen. I did see that you said you had a question for Samira. I also see you and Samira had some back and forth. Did you get your question answered, or did you want to ask another question through the chat? It was answered. Okay, great, super. Okay, so and then I'll wait and see after James if someone else has a question or comment, and then I may see if some of the other people like Bob Palmer of Housing Action Illinois wanted to add something, and then anyone else of course. So yeah, so I met this great person, Brother James Benton, and we were together on a sort of teleconference with a national organization some months ago, and we both found out that we had a lot in common. And he works with the Kalmanowitz Institute at Georgetown University, and they're building a really inspiring coalition to try to keep low-wage workers and keep African Americans, Latinx, keep everyone in their homes in the greater DC area. And he's been so kind. He's joined us a couple times. It's an hour later there. And James, just really appreciate you being here. And I just think we get so much out of learning about each other's areas, because it's the same, but you all have a slightly different date right now with your eviction and different things. So first of all, thank you so much for making time. And if you could share and or ask or whatever you want to do with a few minutes, I think we'd all benefit from it.
Okay. Well, Leonie, thank you for the opportunity. And I learned a lot from this and previous meetings about the work that you all are doing in Chicago to prevent evictions, especially as we approach winter. And it's given me some ideas on what we can do in Washington. The future is here, unfortunately. The eviction moratorium being lifted in the summer, 2 weeks ago, evictions started up again in Washington. We had about 70 2 weeks ago. They're estimating around 300 between now and the end of October. This, and not surprisingly, these evictions are disproportionately concentrated in Black and brown neighborhoods across DC. But what we're seeing now is a gradual fight taking place. Law schools have been pledging support to offer free or low-cost free assistance to people facing eviction. Community organizations are doing everything from circulating know your rights guides to helping people apply for rental and utility assistance. And we at the Kalmanovitz Initiative, we have students finally on campus for the first time in a while. And we want to use those students to help put people in touch with the various organizations that they need to contact to get the help they need. So our goal is to essentially keep as many people in their houses this winter with this pandemic going on. And as the DC moratorium is phased out, it's supposed to be lifted by February, but we're trying to do as much as we can to get people the help so that they can stay where they are and not face another upheaval in their lives with eviction. So that's really all I wanted to say. I, again, am encouraged to see the work that you all are doing, and we're doing the same thing. And just keep in mind that we're all fighting the same fight, whether it's in Chicagoland or in DC or anywhere in between. So thanks again, and I will pause there and let some other folks talk. It's good to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, James. And it's the second time you've been on. And again, I just think it's going to take a really broad effort from a whole lot of us. I mean, at Working Family Solidarity, we technically consider ourselves a labor organization, but we organize the same workers in housing, because or else the labor gains don't go as far as we need them to go. And we need to link compensation and basic housing. They should be exactly tied together. So $15 in Chicago, that's really high. The problem is studies show you need more like $25 an hour if you're going to just pay the basic rent. And so why we don't see those as connected, and of course we do, but we just don't have the power yet to change that. So we want to stay in touch. You could say a lot more. You're very polite not to keep going, but obviously you know the coalition you have is impressive, and I noticed that you have a lot of labor organizations working with you, and that's something I'd like to see more in Chicago. And there's a lot of reasons why some of the bigger labor groups that have more power don't speak out more on housing issues, right? And you know, their excuses are not acceptable. I've been a staff person with major unions for a number of years, many years with the farm workers, and then a lot of years with worker centers. But if we're going to be labor cannot stand by the side while low-wage workers are gentrified out and evicted, right? But they have a lot of pressure from the building trades unions, who do a lot of the building and deconversion and reconversion and building of condos, right? So they have a lot of pressure from a lot of their members not to speak out, but we find that unacceptable, right? We're not trying to say people shouldn't have work doing construction, but don't kick someone out of their home and then build a new house and then call that an advance. One worker got a job and one worker's gone. That's not acceptable anymore. So we need more power at the table. So James, we look forward to being in touch, because we want to figure out how to get big labor on board, and that's not going to be an easy fight, right? But it's going to be a necessary struggle with love and respect for all, but we're going to have to struggle around that issue. Are there other things? And I see you put some more information in the chat. Am I right? Yes. I urge you to look at that and see more what James is doing. And I would love to also work with the group, Sharon and I, and to see how maybe we could find out, maybe one time we could do like a forum together with you, James, and the work you guys are doing, the Reclaim Rent Control campaign and some of the other things that you all are doing, and maybe figure out how we can sort of support each other and have a more formal dialogue and maybe a series of presentations where we can try to learn from each other and see what seems to be working and stuff like that. I think that'd be really exciting. I did want to see also, we still have a little bit more time. I wanted to see if Bob Palmer, Bob, did you want to add anything to the Housing Action Illinois piece, or anything that that might just be useful for people listening? We'd love to hear from you, and thanks for making time to be here.
Oh, thanks. And thanks for inviting Foluke to present. I don't have too much to add to what Foluke and others have said. It is admittedly a bit confusing because there's all these different ways to get emergency rent assistance right now. And a lot of people were, because it was the highest profile program, the one that the Illinois Housing Development Authority was running through their web portal, and then the city of Chicago had their own web portal, and Cook County had their own web portal. Those web portals are closed. So one thing we've been really focused on is just making clear to people, you know, that the rent assistance is still available. And we are hopeful that the court-based rent assistance programs for those tenants and also landlords who haven't applied yet for whatever reason, or even if they got turned down or they still have an application pending, that will be a good resource to prevent evictions. And obviously with the eviction moratorium ending in Illinois right now on October 3rd, there's a great deal of uncertainty. We're hoping that the rent assistance is sufficient to avoid a major spike in eviction. We know that obviously evictions are going to increase, unfortunately. So that's why we are also focused, you know, still on the long-term housing needs, and our greatest opportunity to get more resources right now is from the federal infrastructure package that Foluke and Michael talked about. And right now that's being negotiated in DC. If people are following the news, it looks like it's really at risk of not happening or being severely cut down because of legislators, mostly from outside of Illinois. So we really need to remind our Illinois legislators that if this package is going to be cut, we need to keep the kind of the housing and the resources to end homelessness in the forefront of the negotiations.
Unmute myself. And are there folks with questions or comments? I can always come up with another question or comment. We can also do this here, as if anyone thinks of anything else. We got a little more time. I'd love to use it. We don't need to go past 7:30, but I'd love to go. I have a question if there is space. Michael, that's you, right?
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I didn't want to be one of the presenters asking questions.
Well, so what I wanted to make sure, let me just tell you this, Michael, and you can decide how you want to go forward. I mean, I wanted to make sure that each of the three panelists, and we still have time to have a question or two and then do this, but I just want to remind the panelists, each of you, when we're about 5-6 minutes from closing, I'll make sure you each get a last like 2 minutes to just add any last thing that you'd like, be it a question, a comment, or just, you know, reminding people of something. But yeah, please go ahead, Michael.
Thank you. I think this question is probably directed towards you, Samira, but it really is open to everyone. Something you said earlier about the right to cure period and how that requires full payment of the amount owed or that you're being sued for, in addition to, of course, late fees, but also court fees. And I'm wondering where the county, if they have already stepped up, or where courts, not even just Cook County, but where courts can step in and say, hey, we're not going to let a filing fee prevent someone who's hard on their luck from curing this arrearage. Like, can the courts forgive these fees or create a repayment plan so this does not interfere?
So can they? Yes, I think there are lots of creative solutions so that someone isn't going to be evicted for want of whatever $273 court fee. We have tossed around some ideas that haven't really gone anywhere. There is a fee waiver process in the circuit courts. Indigent litigants can apply and get their fees waived. You know, we've suggested perhaps using that retroactively to waive fees. There are always competing interests with all of these. Court fees fund court operations, and so there's a challenging dynamic anytime you want to discuss waiving those fees. We haven't gotten, I would say, overwhelmingly positive responses about our ideas, but I do believe that there is legal authority for courts to find ways to not have that be a stumbling block. I don't think we're there yet, though. So, and the rental assistance, as to the best of my knowledge, can't be used to pay for that. So it may be that a tenant is able to get 99% of what they owe, and it's going to need to come up with those last few $100s through other channels. And that's fine. They can combine money from multiple sources to cure their back rent.
Thank you very much. And Jesse, I think you typed in a question. Jesse Daniels. I think the question is, let's see here, is there a renter's guide for people in suburban Cook County? Anyone want to take a shot at that or ask a clarifying question about what kind of guide?
Well, I don't know if this answers the question. One victory that we had with several groups on the meeting tonight, including Working Family Solidarity, and Sharon was a big part of this, and also Housing Choice Partners was passing the Cook County Residential Tenant Landlord Ordinance that went into full effect on June 1 of this year. So now tenants in suburban Cook County that didn't have any or only very minimal tenant protections in their relationship with their landlord now significantly have more protections. So that's a resource out there. And then if somebody's looking for housing, if they're more inquiring about how to find housing, there's various websites, and I can share one or two in the chat.
Okay, can you or can someone, let's see, Cook has good, can you write that out, Bob, in the chat? Just what you had talked about, the new ordinance.
I will.
And then people can sort of look that up and find it. One of the things that did was, and we were proud to help work on that. One of the things that did is Chicago has a relatively progressive, we would all like to see it stronger, but has a relatively decent sort of set of rules that I know a lot of people on this call that none of your landlords have followed. Like, I know that for a fact. So when you start, you have to get a contract. You have to get in writing the security deposit. You have to get so many things that none of you got. But what this did was make Cook County stronger. So we have a lot of enforcement to do, right? Better in Chicago and in Cook County, but it gives us the tools to be able to do that, right? And one of the things, since I know this might be relevant to a certain amount of folks on the call, none of this, just like workers' comp or minimum wage, are not legally tied to immigration status. Okay, so unfortunately, and I know some of you on the call personally have had people come and tell you things in the past about, like, if you don't pay up, I'm gonna call, voy a llamar a la migra, right? I'm gonna call the immigration authorities. There are nasty people that try to do nasty things, so I can't tell you people won't try to do nasty things, but in my experience, 9 times out of 10, maybe more like 19 out of 20, it's a fake threat. It's a threat to get you scared. It's a really nasty thing. But most of the time, anyone who might look into what's happening housing wise, legally in any case, they're not supposed to touch immigration. Okay, so let us know if you get any of those kinds of threats. That can possibly be, if you can help get evidence about that, to help you stay in your home, because people are not supposed to bring up those nasty illegal things. We have little time, so I'm going to go back to the panelists before we close, and we'll go in the order that you presented. So we'll go with Foluke and then Michael. I'm going to go back to the original order. I know that we leapfrogged you, Foluke, but I want to honor you as the first person on the agenda. So Foluke, then Michael, then Samira, if you want to take 1 or 2 minutes with any closing last thought. Please, Foluke.
Thanks. Yeah, so with the technical issues, I'm glad that we were on track for the rest of the session. But I guess my final thoughts is that if you are, again, looking for any of this assistance, I did put the links there, and I'm sure we'll follow up with some, I will send the PowerPoints and links to Leon and Sharon. But thanks again for having us today. And if folks have any issues or questions, I'll also put my email information in the chat if folks want to reach out to me directly for any questions they may have as well. Thanks again.
Thanks again for making time. And Michael, please.
Yeah, I want to say thank you again for everyone, and really just ask one last time to please join us in this fight to make source of income discrimination illegal, to ensure that regardless of where your rental payment is coming from, that it will secure your home for you and your family, and that this will add this new layer of protection, preventing families from being evicted at this time. Just as everyone has laid out, we need every tool possible, because the cost of just a single eviction is just too large, not just for that family, but for the community, for the city, for the state. We need this now. I will say, I dropped a number of resources in there. Please do take a few moments just to email or call your senator. There was a link on how to get their number and their email address. And then in addition, we're hoping that by Friday or maybe Monday, we'll have a new tool that'll make it much easier, where it'll be kind of like a pre-filled call to action to your senator. You type in, your address, and it'll automatically send it to your senator, so you don't even have to look them up. Hopefully we have that in a couple of days to make it easier. If you or anyone you know has been impacted by source of income discrimination, or wants to get involved, wants to meet with your elected official and hold them accountable, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. I would love to connect with you and help bring you into the fold. We need every helping hand we can get.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Thanks for making time as well. And Samira, any last comment?
Sure. I actually would end on a slightly optimistic note. I think for those of us who've worked in the housing space for a while, it's nice that there's finally attention and funding, even if it's not enough coming into this space. And we have a rare opportunity to really change the narrative around housing and rent and housing court. And I think if we can find the opportunities here, we can make real structural changes here, even when COVID is gone. I'm excited that we're starting to talk about courts as a place that solve problems rather than creating problems. And I think that we have a lot of work to do, but we have a great opportunity and a great community here. So I hope others can find a little bit of something to be optimistic about as well, and take advantage of all these resources while they're here so we can keep them.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and last but not least, thanks to all of you who stuck around, some of who came in as panelists, others who stayed as attendees, but we really appreciate you coming on, and more than appreciate, back in the farm worker movement, we had a statement, we had like a slogan, because we had so few resources, right, to pay anyone or do anything. Put gas in our cars. And so we had a slogan that every worker is an organizer. And in a way, what it means is every worker needs to be an organizer. And we could say every tenant is an organizer. We need everyone to be an organizer. I like what Michael said. If you're okay, how's your neighbor doing? Right? We're not going to get through this by saying, hey, it looks like my family's okay. Whew. That's how we got in this mess, right? Too often in the struggle, we stay apart, and we don't see that all these pieces are connected, right? And that a few tiny percent of really wealthy people have inordinate power, and the rest of us kind of struggle to get through the day, and we don't have the power we should, because we're not really organized. And so our incredible energy kind of bounces off each other, but it doesn't often go in the right channel direction at the right time. And that's just difficult. It's a lot of people working hard, right? But we got to figure out how to come together and really hone in and make our organizing effective. So I am, heartened. I think a lot of you who've heard some of this, please, if you're okay, please tell some other people who may not be. Please do that. And don't see yourself as a tenant, see yourself as an organizer. We need you. We need you to be a leader. Everyone needs everyone on this phone call, and we need your parents. We need your children. We need your aunt, uncle, neighbor. Every one of you has to see yourself like a soldier in this nonviolent battle, right, for our rights. And we won't get through it until we each see that we have a little bit of responsibility that's actually only ours. It's no one else's. And we can either let it sit there or we can take it, right? It's not for Leone or Sharon to come get, it's actually just yours. And mine, I can't really give mine to anyone else. I take it or I kind of decide not to accept it, but please accept whatever you can do for yourself first, but then also for anyone else. And then that way, that's why these teach-ins can be effective. So thank you so much for joining us. Muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros esta tarde. We really appreciate it. Extra thanks again to Brother James. Really appreciate you making time. It's the second time you've done it. I know it's later out there. The Kalmanowitz Initiative at Georgetown University. Read all about it. They're doing really great stuff. I actually was out there for a conference some years ago to look at labor things and the community. And here we are again doing the same thing. So bless you all. Thank you so much for making time. And we'll be in touch with some emails coming up. Have a really, really great evening. Thanks again to the great panelists. Thanks to Somos Sur for our interpreting. Really, really appreciate it. Eva and Crystal, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening.